Commander Zix-9 stared at the twisted metal remains scattered across the testing chamber floor, his 4 optical sensors cycling through various spectrums of disbelief. The pristine white walls were now decorated with scorch marks, dents, and what appeared to be bite marks. Explain this to me again. He clicked in the universal translator, his mandibles twitching with barely contained frustration. Dr. Kethara, the Vorthak Empire's leading materials scientist, shuffled her 6 legs nervously. Well, sir, the human requested to examine the Eternium-class battle armor. Standard procedure called for a demonstration of its indestructible properties. The armor in question had been the crown jewel of Vorthak military engineering for 3 centuries. Forged from quantum-locked metamaterials and reinforced with crystallized dark matter, it had never sustained so much as a scratch in combat. The manufacturer's guarantee was simple: absolutely indestructible, 10,000-year warranty. And where, Zix-9 gestured with one of his articulated limbs, is this human now? In the medical bay, sir. Complaining about indigestion. The commander's optical array dimmed. Of course, earlier that day, Sergeant Jake Morrison had been the only human aboard the Vorthak research vessel, Inevitable Progress. At 6 feet tall and built like someone who'd spent too many years hauling freight across the outer colonies, he looked unremarkable by human standards. To the Vorthak, who averaged 12 feet in height and possessed natural exoskeletons, he appeared almost fragile. So this stuff is supposed to be indestructible? Jake had asked, running his calloused fingers along the armor's pristine surface. Absolutely, Dr. Kethara had replied with the pride of someone who'd spent decades perfecting the impossible. The quantum lattice structure makes it impervious to all known forms of energy weapons, kinetic impacts, molecular disintegration, temporal shear, and even exposure to black hole event horizons. We've tested it against— Can I try something? Jake interrupted. The doctor's compound eyes blinked in sequence. Try. What exactly? Jake shrugged. Just want to see how indestructible it really is. What happened next would be debated in Vorthak scientific circles for generations. Jake picked up a section of the armor plating, hefted it thoughtfully, then did something so fundamentally human that it short-circuited the translator's ability to find an appropriate Vorthak equivalent. He got creative. First, he tried bending it. The quantum-locked metamaterial, designed to withstand the gravitational stress of a neutron star, groaned ominously, not breaking but definitely not happy about the situation. Interesting, Jake muttered, examining the slight warp he'd introduced. Doc, you got any tools around here? Tools? Dr. Kethara sputtered. What kind of tools could possibly affect Eternium class? Jake was already rummaging through a maintenance kit left by a cleaning drone. He emerged with what the Vorthak considered a primitive implement, a standard molecular wrench used for basic hull maintenance. Oh, this won't work, he said after a few experimental taps. But you know what might? Before Dr. Kethara could protest, Jake had located the chamber's emergency supplies. Emergency supplies that included, for reasons that would later seem incomprehensibly stupid, a container of concentrated industrial solvent designed to break down space debris. Human Morrison, I really don't think, and the doctor began. Jake had already doused the armor segment and was now hitting it with the molecular wrench, while it was chemically compromised. The Eternium-class material, designed to be absolutely impervious to any single form of attack, had never been tested against the human approach of throwing everything at the problem simultaneously. The first crack appeared after Jake's 7th swing. Huh, he said, then looked around the chamber with the expression of a man solving a particularly interesting puzzle. Hey Doc, what happens if I heat this up while it's still got that solvent on it? The thermal expansion would create stress fractures in the quantum matrix, but that's theoretical. Morrison, no. Jake had already grabbed the emergency plasma torch. Present moment. So let me understand this, Commander Zix-9 said slowly. The human defeated our indestructible armor by cheating? Not cheating, sir, Dr. Kethara corrected miserably. Improvising. He used 17 different methods simultaneously, including several we'd never considered testing because they seemed illogical. Such as, he soaked it in solvent, heated it with plasma, hit it with kinetic force. Introduced harmonic resonance by humming. Apparently humans can produce specific frequencies with their vocal cords. Created localized electromagnetic fields using his personal communication device. And then, she paused. And then, he bit it, sir. The commander's optical array focused to pinpoint intensity. He bit the armor. Human dental enamel, it turns out, has a very specific crystalline structure that, when combined with the chemical alterations he'd already made, created a chain reaction in the quantum lattice. The bite marks you see were actually the final blow. Everything else was just preparation. In the medical bay 3 decks down, Jake Morrison was accepting a mild antacid from the ship's medic and reviewing his notes. The Vorthak had asked him to examine their indestructible technology, and he'd given them an honest assessment. Everything breaks if you're creative enough. The real lesson, Jake reflected as he headed back to his quarters, wasn't that human ingenuity could overcome alien superscience. It was simpler than that. Indestructible was just a challenge wearing a fancy label. And humans, Jake Morrison included, had never been particularly good at backing down from challenges. As he passed through the ship's corridors, he noticed several Vorthak crew members quickly hiding what appeared to be other pieces of indestructible equipment. Word traveled fast aboard starships. Jake smiled. Tomorrow was going to be an interesting day. Behind him, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Attention all crew. Human Morrison is no longer permitted unsupervised access to anything labeled indestructible, unbreakable, impossible, or warranty void if tampered with. Jake's smile widened. Challenge accepted.